It's February 20th here in Seoul, and I'm Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the criminal trial proceedings of President Yoon. The troubled leader appeared at the first preliminary hearing of his criminal trial on insurrection charges this morning. The 10th hearing of his impeachment trial, which is supposedly the very last session, is scheduled for later this afternoon. U.S. President Donald Trump called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator after Zelensky accused Trump of repeating Russian disinformation. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his satisfaction with the outcome of U.S. and Russian officials' peace talks in Saudi Arabia, while adding that no one is excluding Ukraine from peacemaking. In the face of mounting pressure stemming from Trump's reckless tariff policies, the South Korean government and local firms put their heads together to overcome growing trade uncertainties. According to the trade minister, communication channels with the U.S. are in full operation. President Yoon's political fate continues to hang in balance, with his criminal trial on insurrection charges now kicking off as we come on air. For more, we go over to our Eun-ji standing by at the Seoul Central District Court. Eun-ji, this is the first pre-trial conference of his criminal trial, isn't it?
That's right, Tommy. Security is heightened here at the Seoul Central District Court as the president arrived here just about an hour ago to attend his preliminary hearing of his criminal trial that began just moments ago at 10 a.m. Police have beefed up security at the court gates, heightening security checks on visitors and banning unregistered vehicles from entering. Now, Yoon showed up at today's session, although he was not required to. A defendant does not have to be present at a preliminary hearing, a step that's held in the early stages of a criminal case to cover legal arguments and evidence. Today's hearing marks the start of a criminal trial that could lead to life in prison or even the death penalty for Yoon if convicted of insurrection. The president's team is expected to deny Yoon's insurrection charges by claiming what happened on the night of December 3rd was an act of governance. Yoon is the first sitting president to face a legal trial in South Korean history. He's also the first to face both a criminal trial and an impeachment trial at the same time.
Well, Eun-ji, that's not it. Another hearing is taking place at the same place over there today. That is to review Yoon's request to cancel his arrest. Tell us more.
That's right. A separate hearing to review the legality of Yoon's detention will take place here at the Seoul Central District Court. That was requested by Yoon's legal team earlier this month. They asked the Seoul Central District Court to cancel his arrest and release the president, arguing that prosecutors indicted Yoon a day after the detention period expired on January 25th, making it illegal. Now, if the court finds it unlawful, he will be released from custody. Yoon has been detained at the Seoul Detention Center in Uiwang, south of the capital, since he was arrested on January 15th. And eyes are now on whether the president will speak for himself at the court today and state his opinion. Tommy?
Alrighty, thank you, Eun-ji, for the update. That was our Eun-ji live from the Seoul Central District Court. Now, despite Yoon's criminal trial proceedings beginning this morning, the Constitutional Court rejected a request by the president's lawyers to postpone today's impeachment hearing, which looks to be the last or next to last hearing in the trial. For more, we connect with our Oh Soo-young. Hello there, Soo-young.
Good morning, Tammy.
So, Soo-young, while there are concerns, the overlapping schedule weakens Yoon's right to legal self-defense. The Constitutional Court has decided to push ahead anyway.
That's right, Tammy. The 10th hearing of President Yoon's impeachment trial will begin at 3 p.m, an hour later than scheduled, with 3 witness examinations, beginning with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. Now, Han has previously stated that President Yoon didn't hold a proper cabinet meeting before declaring martial law on December 3rd. Now, this has been a major ground for impeachment, as the Constitution requires a cabinet meeting and related procedures to approve and implement martial law. However, Han's lawyer on Wednesday appeared to clarify the Prime Prime Minister's position to say that due to the urgent circumstances on December 3rd, the Cabinet did not follow normal procedures, but whether it was legitimate or not is for the court to decide. Former intelligence official Hong Jang-won, who was summoned as a key witness for the National Assembly side, will return to the court today for further questioning by Yoon's legal team. Hong claims that there was a list of 14 to 16 figures President Yoon wanted to arrest under martial law. He believes that he was also ordered to aid the Counterintelligence Command in tracking down and detaining the individuals. Also, National Police Agency Chief Cho Ji-ho will be forced to attend after 2 absences due to illness. He's told prosecutors that Yoon ordered him to arrest lawmakers on the night of martial law and heard from the counterintelligence commander 15 names of politicians and judicial figures to detain. However, we'll need to wait and see what he has to say today, as we've seen previously that witnesses who testified quite unfavourably for President Yoon have ended up altering their words in court, leading to some quite conflicting statements.
So, Soo-young, for now, Thursday is the last hearing date scheduled for the impeachment trial. What comes next?
That's right. But experts say that it's likely the court will arrange 1 or 2 additional hearings just to wrap up the arguments made so far and also hear President Yoon's final statement. A ruling will likely be made then in the first half of March, as in past impeachment trials, the verdict normally took around 2 weeks to reach. Now, President Yoon's lawyers have said that they might apply for more witnesses after a day of review, but it's unclear whether the court would approve, given how they've rejected most of the over 30 candidates that Yoon's legal team has applied for, and also emphasised a swift trial process. Now, as the court continues to push through with the proceedings and shoots down requests by Yoon's team, his lawyers have said that they might embark on a, quote, big decision, which they have hinted could involve their collective resignation as a show of protest.
I see tensions do remain high as the impeachment draws to an end. Soo-young, thank you for the coverage this morning. It is going to be another long day for President Yoon today. His impeachment trial may be nearing an end, but he is now in the face of another trial, this time a criminal trial on insurrection charges. We turn to Professor Baek Eun-seok for more. Thanks for joining us.
Very good morning. Happy to be with you.
So Yoon's criminal trial proceedings kicked off just minutes ago. Now, what should we expect from today's session?
As we saw in his impeachment trial, the court holds, before it gets to the main trial, preliminary hearings or preparatory sessions. So what's happening today is one of those pre-trial hearings or preparatory sessions. And the main business of the court for a pre-trial hearing that is taking place today involved essentially 3 things. The court working with the lawyers from both sides, that's the prosecution and the President Yoon's side, to identify and clarify issues of dispute, to determine the scope of evidence, including the list of witnesses to be called in,
right,
and the scheduling the main trial. So those are the 3 things that are the main business of a pre-trial hearing today.
It's also notable how he made himself present at the hearing today, which shows how seriously he's taking this, another criminal trial. Now,
Sure.
Another hearing over a request to cancel his arrest is also taking place at the same place today. He obviously can't make it there since he's at the criminal hearing. How will that session go?
Well, actually, as I understand it, the session where the court decides whether his detention is legal or not, will be taking place at the same place at the same time. Mm-hmm. In other words, the same criminal tribunal will be doing those 2 things at the same time. And obviously, the fact that President Yoon is present there indicates that much is at stake in his own understanding. Obviously, the charge is insurrection, being the ringleader of an insurrection, which is a very, very serious criminal act. So if convicted, as you know, the sentence is up to the death penalty. So it is a serious charge, and I think President Yoon wants to do all that he can. And the legal team that challenges the detention has made the same arguments on previous occasions as well, including For instance, the CIO didn't have the authority to investigate. The court did not have jurisdiction, and detention exceeded the period. But these are the arguments that are not new, and I expect President's legal team would raise exactly the same kind of arguments, which, in my view, the court may not be very, willing to accept. But that's taking place at the same time in the same court. So President Yoon's presence there indicates that, in his understanding, really much is at stake today.
Well, again, he has a packed schedule today. He will wrap up the day with the 10th and final hearing of his impeachment trial this afternoon. Now, will President Yoon, do you think, speak up and deliver final arguments himself?
As things stand now, it's unclear whether he would be present at the impeachment trial later today. His lawyer announced yesterday that he will attend his criminal proceeding, but wasn't sure or not decided yet as of yesterday whether he will be present at the impeachment trial. He has been attending all his impeachment trial sessions to this point. This afternoon, it's unclear. Now, today's impeachment trial is primarily about hearing testimonies from 3 key witnesses. And that I guess, would take up most of the time. And so a president will not make his final statement, which will be set aside for another hearing. And so witness testimonies will take up most of today's impeachment trial. And then I think it's very likely that court will set a date for another hearing, unless there is an additional witness to be called in. As of today, no additional witness. But if that happens, then maybe there is going to be another hearing, 11th, and then the final hearing where both sides, both the National Assembly sides, as well as President Yoon's side, would make the closing arguments, followed by President's own final statement.
Right, just to be clear, he didn't attend all the hearings. If I'm correct, he did skip the first 2, and then he also skipped the very last one, the 9th one this week, right?
Right.
So he did attend a total of 6 hearings so far of the impeachment trial.
Yes, the session that he did not attend was, I think, part of his legal team's decision that his presence would not actually help his legal team getting the kind of statements from the witnesses they were examining.
Right.
And so maybe the decision for President Yoon not to attend this afternoon's session, but again, that's still undecided, may have something to do with the witnesses, especially Prime Minister Han's testimony this afternoon.
Right, because you mentioned this, before I let you go, Professor Baek, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and President Yoon will face each other for the first time if Yoon does make himself present at the hearing later this afternoon. What kind of scenes do you expect to see there?
Well, obviously, it's going to be a very interesting time for both President and the Prime Minister Han to see each other in the court. Now, the issue really is that Prime Minister Han has been saying all along that he did not know that there was a cabinet meeting, which was a requirement for the declaration of martial law to be legal. And he has said that, in his view, the cabinet meeting, which was not there in the first place, if there were, to quote, it was loaded with defects, both procedural and substantive. So that has been his position. And I think President Yoon's lawyers would like to press him to get the kind of statement from him that in effect would say there was a legitimate, a valid cabinet meeting. And so the requirement was met. But I don't think, given the statement and the stand that Prime Minister Han has maintained, I don't think the legal team will be able to get the kind of statement from him that they want. But it's going to be a very interesting session this afternoon.
Indeed, that will be a key point that we should keep our eyes on throughout the day. Professor Beck, thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
And at the National Assembly on Thursday afternoon, Acting President Choi Sang-mok and National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, ruling People Power Party leader Kwon Young-se, and main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung will sit down for a four-way meeting to discuss state affairs. At this first meeting of the joint consultative body between the government and the National Assembly, they are expected to discuss the details of the supplementary budget for this year, as well as measures to support the domestic semiconductor industry and improve the national pension system. The meeting is being held to stabilize state affairs following the aftermath of the martial law back in December. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he was pleased with the results of the recent U.S. Russia talks in Saudi Arabia to discuss ending the war in Ukraine, while a rift between U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is raising concerns of its potential impact on the negotiating talks. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
After Russian President Vladimir Putin was briefed on the outcome of the recent U.S. Russia talks in Saudi Arabia, the Russian leader expressed satisfaction, saying that he rates the talks highly.
I rate them highly. There are results. They were open to the negotiating process without prejudice and condemnation of what has been done in the past.
When asked about the exclusion of Ukraine from the recent talks in Saudi Arabia, Putin said Ukraine would not be excluded in future talks.
As for the negotiating process, President Trump told me during our phone call, I can confirm it, that of course the U.S. assumes that both Russia and Ukraine will take part in the negotiating process. Nobody is excluding Ukraine from this process, so there are no reasons for such a reaction to the Russia-U.S. meeting.
However, a war of words between the leaders of the U.S. and Ukraine is raising concerns of its potential impact on future negotiations. After the conclusion of the U.S. Russia talks, U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters at Mar-a-Lago that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's public approval rating was down to 4%. Zelensky responded that Trump was living in a space of disinformation and expressed hopes that the U.S. leader and his team get a clearer understanding of what's really going on in Ukraine. Ukraine was not the only country left out of the recent negotiation talks. European countries were also absent, forcing their leaders to hold their own emergency meeting. The major talking point has been whether or not the European allies of Ukraine should send troops for further assistance. Germany, Italy, Spain, and Poland expressed reluctance. However, the UK said it is prepared to send its forces to Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will visit the U.S. next week, hopeful they too can take part in negotiations to end the Ukraine war. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's efforts to survive through another round of Trump's tariff salvo continue. This morning, officials from Korea's Trade Ministry, along with representatives from major companies and think tanks, met to coordinate a response strategy. Our Kim Jong-sil has more.
In response to the latest trade measures announced by U.S. President Donald Trump, South Korea is upping its efforts to protect key industries. On Thursday, the Ministry of Trade held a high-level meeting with senior officials from 9 major companies, including Samsung, Hyundai, and LG, to discuss how to handle the looming tariffs targeting steel, aluminum, and key industries such as automobiles and semiconductors. Minister for Trade Chung In-kyo emphasized that the government is fully mobilizing its channels with the U.S. to help South Korean industries overcome the uncertainty they're facing. He added that the government will strengthen collaboration with private think tanks to refine its response strategies. At a separate meeting, the Trade Ministry held the second session of the Industry Policy Council in Seoul, chaired by Deputy Minister for Industrial Policy Lee Seung-yeol. The meeting brought together officials from 10 major sectors, including semiconductors, automobiles, steel, and biotech, to discuss the latest developments. Industry representatives called for bold tax incentives, including extended investment tax credits, expanded tax breaks for strategic tech facilities, and direct tax credit refunds to boost investment. Both the government and private sector are to work closely with counterparts in the EU and Japan who face a similar situation. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
South Korea's consumer sentiment has risen for the second consecutive month, reflecting growing optimism over future political stability. According to the Bank of Korea on Thursday, the consumer sentiment index for this month reached 95.2, marking a 4-point increase from the previous month. And this is the largest jump since June 2021. Officials said that expectations of political stability and rising stock prices led to an improved outlook on living conditions. However, the index has not yet returned to pre-martial law levels. BTS member J-Hope will headline a major music festival in Germany later this year. According to his agency Big Hit Music on Wednesday, J-Hope will perform at the Lollapalooza Berlin, which take place on July 12 and 13. This marks the second time he's taking part in a Lollapalooza event. He was the first K-pop singer to headline the music festival in Chicago back in 2022. J-Hope will also begin his first solo world tour starting in Seoul from February 28th to March 2nd. He will also visit 15 cities including New York, Chicago, Mexico City, and Manila.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Beginning in the Middle East, Hamas is set to return the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages, including a mother and her 2 young sons, as part of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Hamas confirmed the identities of the 4 bodies on Wednesday ahead of returning them to Israel on Thursday. They include Shiri Bibas, age 32, and her 2 young boys, 4 and 9 months old, who for many Israelis have come to symbolize the plight of those taken as hostages. The family had been abducted during the October 2023 attacks on southern Israel and had since been held captive. In addition, the body of 83-year-old retired journalist Odette Lifshitz is also set to be returned. The developments are part of the initial phase of a ceasefire agreement, which includes the release of 6 living Israeli hostages on Saturday in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the nation was torn ahead of the return of the bodies. NATO has begun its largest military exercise of the year, Steadfast Start 2025 in Romania, aimed at enhancing the alliance's rapid deployment capabilities along its eastern border. NATO's largest combat exercise involves approximately 10,000 military personnel from 9 NATO member countries, including the United Kingdom and Spain. Exercises take place across Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece over 6 weeks, focusing on testing the readiness and interoperability of NATO's Allied Reaction Force. The ARF was established in July 2024 and is designed for deployment within 10 days, integrating conventional forces with cyber and space-based technologies. NATO's most powerful member, the U.S., is not involved, reflecting a shift toward Europe's self-reliance in defense. This comes amid uncertainties regarding the U.S. commitment to European security under President Donald Trump's administration. Over in the United States, Cameron County in Texas has approved an election to determine whether SpaceX's launch site and surrounding areas will be incorporated as the city of Starbase. The vote is scheduled for May 3rd, with early voting set to begin on April 22nd. It will include residents living near the Boca Chica launch facility. A petition initiated in December last year garnered over 70 signatures, primarily from SpaceX employees, meeting the state's requirements for incorporation. If the measure passes, Starbase would become the newest city in Cameron County since 1995. In the Philippines, the Addition Hills Village in Mandaluyong City has launched a program offering residents a bounty for captured mosquitoes. The initiative, introduced on Wednesday, aims to combat the rising cases of dengue fever in the densely populated capital region by offering 1 Philippine peso, which is less than 2 U.S. cents, for every 5 dead or alive mosquitoes or larvae turned in. The strategy was implemented following a significant increase in dengue cases in the country, with over 28,000 reported nationwide as of February 1st, marking a 40% rise compared to last year.
Hope you brought enough warm clothing if you're visiting Korea this week. Much of the country is having colder conditions than normal with winter advisories. Today seems to be a repeat of yesterday with that extra wind chill. Meanwhile, dry alerts have been expanded to more regions. The whole capital area is under a dry advisory now. So keep a humidifier running indoors if possible and drink plenty of water. Your body needs it to take better care of you. Checking on today's highs now, Seoul gets up to 2, Busan at 7 degrees. But be mindful that feels like temperatures will be 4 degrees lower than readings. Clear skies are expected with decent air quality nationwide, but snow will continue for Dokdo and Ulleungdo. Jeju and the West Coast will see a wintry mix this weekend. The rest of the country will be under bright skies, but icy cold weather continues through Sunday before things get much more bearable next week. In the meantime, keep those coats, scarves, and gloves handy.
That is all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.